Hey folks, how's it going? I'm Lexi and I like tabletop role-playing games. So much so that we review one here once a week, every week on the gaming table. If that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to hit subscribe and keep watching this video. Who knows, maybe I'll help you find your next game. Today we are taking a look at a game that has been on my shelf for literal years and I have been too chicken to open it. I was too intimidated to read it because I knew it was a really popular game and I was worried I wouldn't like it. So let's hear what my thoughts are after putting off reading this game for literal years. This is Vampire the Masquerade. This manual seems to have pretty simple lore. The game is generally always set in contemporary times, and generally in a city the players and game master are going to be familiar with. Some cities have lots of vampires, other cities the vampires are small in number due to perhaps humans hunting them. I won't give all the details, but there is a general agreement among vampire kind not to just tell humans that you're vampires. This is especially important in the age of the internet. There's also the Caramilla, who generally sort of are a ruling group of older vampires. It's generally agreed among vampires that younger vampires should listen to the older ones. Not all vampires agree with this rules, and there are lots of tensions between different groups of vampires with different beliefs and different philosophies. Generally, vampires are in hiding in the modern world. There's the Bruja, who tend to be the most rebellious and are kind of punk vampires. They're also very good at fighting. There's the Gangrel, who have an affinity for animals and might have an animal companion. They also tend to be wanderers and hang out on the fringe of society. Then there are the Malkavians, who seem to be not having a great time, mentally speaking. They tend to also be obsessed with seeking out humans who might have the gift of prophecy. There's the Nosferatu, who tend to look pretty rough. Because of their looks, they tend to hang out in city sewers. There's the Toreador, hope I'm saying that correctly, who love aesthetics. They're also probably the most likely to fall in love with a human and have lots of drama. There's the Tremere, who are a newer clan. They would really like it if vampires could run the world, but that's not looking likely anytime soon. Lastly, there are the Venture, who are into infiltrating human governments so they can influence how the human world is run for vampire and their own benefits. Each clan comes with their own philosophies, beliefs, and cultural agreements. They even get unique powers to that clan. A vampire who is sired by a member of one of these clans tends to then belong to this clan, though there are outcasts in vampire society. And sometimes these blood lineages go really far down. This is where the thin-blooded come in. It's technically another one of the rules that vampires who don't have strong enough blood shouldn't be siring other vampires, but it does happen. The thin blood don't have access to as many of the cool powers, but they get some interesting and different benefits instead, though they are often despised by other vampires. Vampire the Masquerade uses pools of d10s to play. You build the pool out of a trait score, which tells you how many dice to roll. A 5 and above is a success, and a 10 is a critical success. You basically want more successes than the target number set by the storyteller. That's what the Game Master is called in this game, by the way. These pools can be made of your character's attributes, skills, discipline, or a combination of a couple of these. There are 3 categories of attributes: physical, social, and mental, and almost 30 skills to choose from. The disciplines are often linked to your vampire clan and the abilities that come with it. The more points you have in something, the more dice you roll. If you are rolling your dice pool in direct opposition to another intelligent being, you generally are going to have the storyteller roll a dice pool against your dice pool rather than just a target number. The 2 pools are counted and the number of successes are then totaled, and whichever side has the higher number of successes wins. This can be used for combat and a couple of other situations. This game manual does come with an optional rule set for more intricate mechanics in the game. I'm honestly not too sure about the usefulness of this. Vampire the Masquerade seems to be a game that is mostly about roleplay, and I don't quite see how more complicated mechanics would be helpful to this particular storytelling option. I will mention some little mechanical things that I find really interesting or cool. If a player's dice pool is double the amount of the challenge number set forth by the storyteller can offer the player to just succeed anyway without having to roll dice. If a player has a failure but rolls a critical success, the storyteller can offer them to complete what they wanted but at a cost. In this game, you also have to keep an eye on your hunger score. There's a little series of boxes to check what level of hungry your vampire is, and depending on the number of boxes you have checked, you will substitute into your dice pool a different die which will represent your character's hunger. You then roll those dice to perform a test. If you get a regular success, then nothing really changes. If they fail, nothing really changes. If one of the hunger die gets a 10, a critical success though, your character can spin out of control, overtaken by their hunger, and it can get hairy really quickly. Something I found slightly unusual for tabletop games, but I totally welcome, was that the Vampire the Masquerade rulebook from World of Darkness encourages people who have enjoyed previous editions to port different story hooks or mechanics from the previous edition into this edition. I'm not sure how well that works concretely, but I will say it is a refreshing change because quite often when a new edition of a game comes out, the company who's made the new edition wants you to forget so hard about the previous editions and not touch the content at all. Or they just try to make it impossible to port over. I will say I do wish the art for the vampires in this book looked a bit more interesting. When I read the write-up of the different clans, it really gave me the impression that each of these clans has a distinct style and a distinct aesthetic from one another. But when I had a look at the character art for the different clans included in this book, they all kind of looked the same with the same supermodel bodies, all wearing vaguely alt clothing, sometimes with some form of a subculture splashed over the top. If you're wondering why I haven't been talking about any previous editions of Vampire the Masquerade while doing this review, I will say I've tried to not take into account previous versions of the game. I haven't read thoroughly any of the previous editions, only ever flipped through other people's books, so I wouldn't know what comparisons to make. I wanted to try review this book as a standalone, as someone new coming to the vampire world. If you're looking for a review where someone compares this version to previous editions, I'm just not the person for that. I think this version, Vampire the Masquerade, is for people who are curious about trying out Vampire as a game. If they have no previous knowledge or experience in the other versions, this edition simplifies some of the lore down and the mechanics are mostly straightforward, so it is very beginner friendly. I will admit, for this review, I tried to avoid hearing people's opinions who were fans of previous editions on Vampire the Masquerade. This book is $55 US. I would maybe borrow it from a friend before diving in to play it. The characters in this game are most likely going to be swayed towards evil, and you'd probably want to be a little bit of vampire enthusiast to be playing this one. Though if it's up your alley, that's probably a price very worth paying. But what did you think? Did I give it a fair review? Are you a longtime vampire fan? If so, now is definitely the time to share your thoughts on this version compared to previous editions. I've written and I've filmed the review. Now I'm free and I can read everyone's thoughts. I have to briefly mention that I have a friend who, in high school, didn't have anyone to play Vampire the Masquerade with, but apparently just sat on his laptop reading vampire lore. I think if you opened a vampire book in front of him and pointed to one of the vampires in an illustration, he would probably be able to identify which clan they belong to in under a minute. It's an impressive talent. While you're in the comments sharing your thoughts about this game, I encourage you to subscribe, maybe even like this video, definitely turn on notifications so you know when I've next posted, and perhaps even share this video with a friend. Maybe you know a vampire enthusiast who can shed some light on this game. I also have a Ko-Fi page where you can donate to this channel to help keep it running, which I always greatly appreciate. appreciate. I hope you're all well, and I look forward to seeing you next time at the gaming table. Bye!